All right. Well, welcome so much to the podcast, Anna. I'm so excited for our conversation today. First of all, let's just kind of get our feet on the ground. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do in your practice and who you help.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Anna DeMare, and I'm a registered nurse, but I'm also what's called an integrative nurse coach. And so that's basically nurses who go through further training to get a board certification in learning how to coach and learn how to be a holistic nurse. So I do that. I'm also a nutritionist, and then I also work with psychedelic plant medicines. And so, using all of these modalities and all the have kind of a bit of a varied background, which I'm sure we'll get into. But using all of the what I know, I help women in midlife through this very complicated transition and just to kind of help them deal with the physical changes, but also mental, emotional, and spiritual changes as well. So it's kind of very much a holistic sort of package.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so much fun. I'm a nurse too. I don't know if you knew that.
I did
Um,
not.
that's a cool connection because we've
Very.
lived in the toxic hospital world and we're like,
And we're
I'm supposed to be here, but I don't really know where I am supposed to be dealing.
very much
Yeah.
feeling that.
How long have you been a coach for?
So I guess it's been officially, I think I received my board certification like 3 years ago or something
Okay.
like that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's kind of been actually my whole life.
Absolutely. Yeah. What kind of nursing did you do when you were in the thrust of the nursing world?
Yeah. So I actually started out as a corrections nurse. So my
Oh,
first
did
nursing
you?
job out of graduation was in a large men's prison. And that was honestly, I learned so much there. And I'm so grateful that I have that experience because it really did change my life in a lot of ways. But then from there, I worked in the ER. So very
Okay.
much, I was working in extremes, we'll say,
Yeah.
the extremes.
I did my nursing preceptorship at the men's prison here in our state.
Ah,
And only because I never intended to work in a prison, but
mhm.
because I just wanted to experience something that I knew I would never experience again. And I sure got an experience. And I have not been back.
It's an experience, yeah, and that was something I definitely appreciated about it was every day was interesting.
Yeah, it was
Never got
never a
bored.
boring day.
Nope,
Never a boring day.
never.
So what do you feel like you had a personal turning point in your nursing career to lead you to the path that you're on right now? Or do you feel like it was always within you? You were just trying to like figure out what it was?
Yeah, I think it was more that second one. I think because I've always really been into, holistic healing and just I think that a lot of it comes from the fact that, I have an Asian background. My mother is from South Korea and I lived there for almost 2 decades. And so there was already that kind of like Eastern influence. And so I think that I was going into the science world, which, I've always really loved science. I've always really loved academics. And when I was in nursing school, I was nerding out and I'm like, oh, I love all of this. But then when I actually got into the practice of nursing, I realized that we were just very much hyper focusing on the science. And I'm like,
Mhm.
but wait, there's so many other beautiful holistic modalities that we can use for healing, and none of it is being used. And so it became very frustrating because I'm like, well, when do we get to use this? Because we did learn a little bit about it in nursing school. I remember that. And I'm like, I remember being really inspired, thinking, wow, we get to use this in our practice, but then we didn't.
Because there's no time to use that,
There's
right?
no
Like
time.
you've got like so many patients on your
Yeah.
plate. There's absolutely no time for anything that's not delivering a medication or delivering a therapy and then discharging them.
Well, that's exactly it. We don't get to follow our patients on their journey. We are privileged enough to be in that position more than doctors are, for example. We spend more time with the patient, but not nearly enough time for what it takes to truly heal from the inside out. That takes time and
Yeah.
ongoing support. And that's exactly what led me to coaching. I'm like, I need to spend more time with my clients. And so
Yeah.
here I am.
Yes. And I absolutely totally feel you on that one. I love the amount of time that you actually get. And I think that clients too, they're starting to realize that that isn't my doctor's job to spend time
Right.
with me. I have to seek outside assistance if I'm wanting more time and depth and things like that. And so I think
Yeah.
that's just so great that the coaching world is evolving for that purpose.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think our poor doctors are getting a lot of blame these days. I mean, they don't have the time or the background or the education to do all of the things that a lot of people expect them to do. So that's why we all work as a team. We have the
Yeah.
doctors, we have the nurses, we have the respiratory therapists, whoever it is. And if you put together the right team, then hopefully you can get to where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Most women expect like from a coach or their doctor or whoever, they they want that advice on food, supplements, hormones, but your work really goes much, it focuses on that as well, but it also goes deeper. What does healing look like beyond those things, the food, the hormones, like the things that we think that we need,
Yeah.
those superficial things? What does healing look like for you and your with your clients beyond those things?
Yeah, so healing, it's such a complex, beautiful onion that we can peel back, right? And a lot of our stuff, and this has been from my own personal experience, but then also from all the research that's out there now, it's pretty much undeniable that a lot of the stuff that we go through in the past, sometimes going all the way back to childhood, carries over into our adult life. There are a lot of patterns that we hold on to. There's a lot of emotional trauma that maybe we haven't been able to process or release. And all of this stuff manifests into our everyday lives, whether it's in our physical health or our mental health or the way that we relate to people. And so they're starting to now connect the dots. Well, I wouldn't say starting, it's been going on for a while now. They're connecting those dots between physical ailments, chronic illnesses, and emotional wounds, and so when we are able to dig into that and go a little bit deeper, a lot of times we're able to release that stuff. And you can call it a miracle, but a lot of times our physical ailments will be resolved or at least be alleviated to some extent. So when you combine that with, the diet and the exercise and all the other stuff that you need to do, then, when you approach it holistically, a lot of times you can really feel a heck of a lot better.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not just that the micromanaging of your food or the micromanaging of your exercise, it's really going in, like allowing yourself to go in deeper and seeing that it's not just that. That stuff helps, but
Yeah,
you can go down deeper. You can get to that root. Otherwise, we're in the season of pulling weeds. If you don't go outside and you don't get that root of the weed, it's just going to resurface again next week and you're going to do the same thing over again. And that's
absolutely.
the same
Yeah.
thing with your healing. Yeah.
Right. And especially when it comes to this stage of life when our hormones are just all over the place, like it's going to affect our emotions. It's going to affect our relationships as a result. It's going to affect our motivation, to maybe eat the foods that we should be eating or, getting exercise. It's going to affect so many things, right? So already our hormones are playing with us. So
Yeah.
it's like the time to be like, okay, can we go a little bit deeper? Like what is in our control?
Yeah.
Can we try to tap into those emotions and recognize them and honor them and be able to process them and find healthy ways to deal with them because they're going to
Yeah.
come up, and
Right.
that oftentimes goes into that deeper inner work and peeling back those layers.
Yes. So you bring together the Western side of medicine and also Eastern practices. How do you make this feel accessible for everyday women, especially living in the United States? We're very much so a Western society. How do you bring those together and allow it to feel like sometimes what I think people need to feel is that it's normal?
Yeah.
Because we think only the Western side is normal. And then we bring something in, we're like, well, that's weird. I don't know that that's for me. How do you make that accessible for just everyday women?
Yeah, I love that question. And I feel like that's kind of one of my special secret sauces is to kind of I live in that intersection between science and spirituality. And so I can bring the woo in a way that's explainable. I can be like, well, this is the science behind it. This is why it works, and if these deep breathing exercises, for example, I'll kind of start talking about the vagus nerve and how that activates this side of your nervous system. And they're like, oh, okay, that makes logical sense. And so when you can kind of tie the science in with it, then I think it makes it more accessible. And so when they start doing these practices, we can start with mindfulness meditation or a breathing practice or just spending time in nature, things like that. When you feel how good that feels afterwards and you get to experience that for yourself, it's almost like you don't even care if it's woo anymore,
Yeah.
because you're like,
Yeah.
hey, like I feel great. This is making me feel better. Like I want more of this. And there's
Yeah.
so much stuff that science can explain, and I will point that out as well. Like there are a lot of things that are still mysterious. The placebo effect, for example, the placebo is it's a real thing. People are experiencing positive outcomes due to the placebo effect. And we haven't quite explained that yet. There's a belief behind it, maybe this, maybe that, but we haven't actually explained it yet, right? So I'll kind of point out that there's some things that science that it can't explain 100% of everything. So why don't we just try this and see if you feel better? Because if you feel better, none of that matters, right?
Right.
I did have, I remember when my clients, she was very, very I think it was our first phone call, was like the discovery call. She was like, I run far from the woo. I do not want any woo. I'm like, don't worry, all of mine is evidence-based. It's evidence-based woo-woo. And so it became this running joke where I would call it evidence-based woo-woo. And so I think that I love to be able to explain things too, and I love to dig deep into the science behind it. And I think carrying that over and explaining that to my clients is what's really helpful as well.
Yeah. So then how do you bridge that with their without like being too woo-woo, but also being woo? Like how do you help them reconnect what because I believe everybody has a woo within them. It's just whether or not they
100%.
just decide to call it woo. How do you get them to connect to that or their intuition, especially during this phase of our transition into like in midlife into menopause when everything feels a little chaotic and disorienting? And how do you get them to really reconnect to their woo, their intuition, their inside body?
Yeah, I think it's really meeting them where they're at, right? Trying to find out what they resonate with. Like maybe they have tried something. Like I'll be like, have you ever tried any other practice? What worked for you? And they're like, oh, I went to a yoga class once. Okay, great. Let's start there.
Hmm.
How did it make you feel? And we'll start where they're at and like expand from there. And slowing down is so important as well. Just being able to like slow down and actually listen to their bodies and listen to that intuition or inner wisdom or whatever you want to call it, just to be like, what are you feeling right now? Are you feeling better? Can we
Hmm.
cultivate more of that? And so I think, going back to what I was just saying earlier, is just really that, okay, are you feeling better? If so, let's just keep going, because
Yeah.
whatever you were doing before wasn't working and that's why you came to me. Let's try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you work mostly one-on-one or do you work in groups or how do your containers work?
Yeah, I love one-on-one.
Yeah.
I do group I do group occasionally and
Okay.
sometimes with like the plant medicine, like we'll do like group ceremonies because there's a lot of
Oh, sure.
healing in that,
Yeah.
that sacred sisterhood, that connection, healing in community. I think there's a lot that can be said for a group container in that
Yeah.
realm.
Mhm.
But I think with the coaching one-on-one is what I think works best for me and for my clients because I love to dive deep and really, really make it personal and be like, let's really explore every aspect of your life here. Let's go into your history and let's get personal. And
Yeah.
I think that that is not as easily done in a group container because some people might be a little bit shy or a little bit ashamed
Mhm.
or, whatever it is. And so I think building that rapport and that trust with a client, it takes time. It takes
Yeah.
time. And I don't want to break that safety of that container. So yeah, so
Mhm.
one-on-one is what works best for me.
Cool. So
Mhm.
when you talk about the group and doing like the healing ceremonies, is that where you bring in your psychedelic medicine?
Yeah, I mean, the we can do one-on-one facilitation as well. I
Mhm.
prefer group just because I love to just feel that overwhelming sense of connection at the end. It's such a beautiful thing to witness. But one work is very meaningful as well because you can really go a lot deeper one-on-one with that individual, and it really depends on them. Some people want to do groups. Some people are like, I don't want to do that in a group. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't, and so they'll prefer the one-on-one. So it's really dependent on the client.
Okay. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that because I'm super interested on what that entails and what that feels like for the client and how they feel afterwards. Like kind of walk me through that.
Ooh, yeah. So okay, I mean, how much experience have you had with plant
I
medicine?
haven't. No.
Okay, so I can
Psychedelics.
start from
No.
the beginning. So it's really there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. Preparation, first of all, you have to do the basic stuff like the safety screen, making sure that there's no history that could raise some red flags that this might be not a safe option for them. So we'll go into health history, psychiatric history, and then a lot of preparation as to like what is your intention for this? Are you
Mhm.
seeking clarity? Are you seeking healing from past wounds? Are you seeking guidance? Whatever it is that you're looking for, that intention is kind of clarified through that preparation process, but also letting the client know this is what's going to happen. You might feel like this. This is normal. I've got you.
Yeah.
And then when it's time for journey day, everybody prepares differently. It's very individual, but journey day, you just expect the unexpected. Because a lot of
Mhm.
times you will go in with a certain intention, but then once you have the medicine, whatever it is that you're doing that day, once you have it, it kind of has a mind of its own sometimes, and you have to be able to trust the wisdom of the medicine because it will sometimes take you to parts of your psyche that you weren't expecting it to, and you just want to be open and prepared and curious and as best you can not be fearful because it's
Yeah.
there to show you something that you're ready to see. If you weren't ready to see it, it wouldn't show you.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of there's an intelligence behind it, right? And so yeah, that's the journey is, it'll take you places. It's literally a journey. And then when you come out of it, then we have what's called the integration. And the integration is reflecting on, maybe some of the visions that you saw, or maybe some of the thoughts you had, or the memories that came up, or the emotions that came up. All that stuff gets processed in that time because while you're in your journey, you don't want to be trying to like connect two and two. You just let it unfold.
Yeah.
That's the job of integration. So once we're in the integration period, that's when we start talking about those things. So there's
Okay.
an immediate integration period, so before all that is lost, right? So you can just kind of talk it all out, whatever you saw and heard and downloaded. And then there's another integration period, some period after that, a week or a month or whatever it is. Because the point is not to just have the journey and be like, okay, now I'm changed. It doesn't happen like that. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people expect to have this like life-changing experience. All of a sudden, I'm a completely different person. I've achieved clarity, and now I know what to do with the rest of my life. And, and it's never like that. So expectations have to be set in the preparation. So it's more like, okay, all right, this has come to be now. What do I do with this? Or how do I sit with this? Or how do I be with this? And so that is the process of integration is like how to, it's never an overnight. Sometimes it is. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it is an overnight thing. Like, boom, all right, I know what to do now. But sometimes it takes a long time to process. Sometimes it can be like I've had things come to me like years later, like I'm
Mhm.
like a vision from a previous journey that's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense now. Oh,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
aha
Yeah.
moments. It can happen like that too. So
Yeah.
you just got to be
How
open.
Okay, so like my practical brain is like, how long does the psychedelic actual journey take?
Mhm. So it depends on the medicine. So if we're talking, let's talk psilocybin since that's like legalized in Oregon and Colorado, and that's where I'm going to be a legal facilitator. I'm going through the process. I haven't got the actual license yet.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
but it will. So since, well, let's talk legal. So psilocybin is magic mushrooms. A lot of people refer to them as.
Okay.
So that journey it can, average like 4 to 6 hours,
Okay.
but it can last a lot longer for some people and it can be shorter for some people. So it really depends on your metabolism, the dose, how sensitive you are, how much you ate that day. I mean, there's so many different factors that will go into it, but average 4 to 6 hours.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
No sense of
So
time.
what's that?
So time.
You have no sense of time. You just wake up and you're like, well, it might be the next year and it might be 20 minutes later. I don't know. I actually
Well,
did a breathwork session, I don't know, like a week or two ago. And I woke up and I was like, I feel like it should be snowing outside. I feel like I've been in here for months. And that was just breath work. So yeah.
very powerful. Yeah, people
Yeah.
underestimate the power of breath work. I mean, that can take you on a journey,
Oh,
absolutely.
for sure. Yes. Yeah. I love it. How do you, let's go to a little bit more like of the practical side again. How do you help women move away from like the punishing or the perfectionist tendencies that we just have been kind of taught from little girls? And now we've brought that all the way to our adult lives and also how we look in our body and how we feel in our body. How do you take that and help them develop something that's more nourishing and sustainable for them?
That is a great example of how sometimes we have to peel back those layers and do that inner work and go deeper because oftentimes that those perfectionist tendencies or that all or nothing mentality, it comes from a deeper sense of self-worth and self-love and we might not feel that at first until we start to dig deeper because I know I went through this whole thing myself, just like I always was like, no, I'm confident, like I love myself. Yeah, I know my worth, but then when I sat and examined it, I was like, but I still kind of have people-pleasing tendencies, and I am definitely still have some of those perfectionist tendencies. And I'm like, where does that all come from? And it's coming from the need for validation, and so there is still some of that left, and I can't say I've completely healed from all of that. I think it's an ongoing journey, especially if it's something that starts way back in childhood, but to recognize it, to just know it, recognize it, be aware of it, and then give yourself grace. Be like, oh, well, we've all got these things going on from childhood. It's
Mhm.
okay. We've all got that, and just to recognize it and be like, oh, I see it. I see it's manifesting. That's okay. I'm recognizing it, forgiving myself for that. And then just going back to just to keep trying and just reminding myself that like this is okay.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
all okay, and we don't have to be perfect. There's no such thing. What is that saying? If you aim for perfection, you realize it's a moving target. And that is absolutely something that I think by the time we've hit midlife, sometimes it takes this long for us to realize that. We're
Mhm.
like when we're younger, like striving for perfection, we're like, yeah, we can get there, we can get there. And by the time we're in midlife, we're like, no, we can't get there.
Yeah. And I'm tired.
Freaking tired. Yeah, I am done. I'm done trying to get there. So I think there's an element of that is just being exhausted from all that and finally waking up and being like, I don't want to do this anymore. I've wasted half of my life trying to do that. I'm not going to waste the second half of my life doing that. So what's a different way of belonging in this world? What's a different way of showing up? And what's a different way of treating myself? And
Yeah.
it's that whole like just that forgiveness and grace and just be like, this is how I'm showing up. I am not perfect and I'm proud of it. And guess what? None of y'all are perfect either. And, and so like when we have more people like coming together and like embracing each other's imperfections and loving each other for it,
Yeah.
that's the power of community as well. And just being once we can be vulnerable and you see that other people accept you for that vulnerability and accept you for your little quirks and your imperfection. You're like, wait a second, I can be like this and people still love me. But the more that we can do that, I mean, the happier we're all going to be as a world. To
Yeah,
just
for sure.
accept each other the way we are. I mean, can we just do that already? So I think it's a process to let go of that control and to let go of all of that stuff. And I think having the support of a coach who sees you. I mean, that's it. At the end of the day, we just want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be loved for who we are,
Yeah.
and to have a compassionate coach, I think really is helpful in that process because
Mhm.
I do love my clients and they legitimately do, you know,
Yes.
right? And I know you feel that. And
Yeah.
to be in that sacred space with them, to be in this intimate space of like where they're opening up and it's like it's very special. It's an honor, it's a privilege to be there. And so I don't want to dishonor that by judging them or, telling them they need to change. It's like, no, no, you're good the way you are. It's like, what do
Right.
you want to change? What do you want to
Yeah.
improve on? What do you want to bring more of into your life? I'll support you in that, and I
Yeah.
think through that process it really helps them feel more of that love and that worthiness and that validation and that reassurance and allows them to open up more in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we just need a mirror. No, this is you. And like you should love all of you and every piece of
Yeah.
you. And if there's something that you want to improve or change some, that's okay. But you don't
Mhm.
have to hate yourself to get that change and to try to micromanage everything and try to be perfect because that's just going to allow you to continue to see what you don't like when in fact there's so much about you that you do like and you do
Yes.
love. And
Yes.
feel more into that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like having a gratitude practice is really important for that. And sometimes it's like it's hokey, it's like nobody wants to write three things they're grateful for at the end of the day. I think some people are
Yes.
like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. But when you actually do it, you're like, wait a second, this is really nice and it's really
Yeah.
actually changing my life in this way. And they've shown, I'm a big neuroscience nerd. I love to support everything with all the research from neuroscience. And neuroscience shows that having some sort of gratitude practice changes your brain. Like it creates these new neural pathways because our brains are neuroplastic until we die, basically, And so to know that whatever patterns we were stuck in can be shifted, to have that knowledge is like really powerful because then if you put in a practice to be able to change those patterns, then it's not long before things are different. The way you're thinking is different. And so having
Yeah.
that gratitude practice is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a simple thing to do and everyone can do it and it's free. And like that's all. Like think about how powerful that is. Like one small free thing you can do every day and it changes how your brain works.
Yes, yes. And that's the thing I think that a lot of people don't realize is that it doesn't have to be this huge overhaul. It doesn't have to be like, well, now I need to, pay all this money or take all these supplements or do,
Mhm.
this expensive practice. It doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes it's in those simple things that the biggest changes happen, as long as you're doing it consistently. And I think that's something
Mhm.
that I'm always repeating is that don't forget about consistency. You can't just
Yeah.
try something once and think that it's going to change your life. It's very rare that trying something once changes your life. It can happen,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
but It's oftentimes in the little teeny things that you change and do them consistently over time. That's what's really going to change your life because your brain needs that time to process it and to create those new neural pathways and for it to become a habit and to become embodied in your life. So that's something that I always want my clients to take away is that you don't have to do these big things if you don't want to. Just start
Mhm.
small, step by
Yeah.
step. You know,
Yeah.
and I remind them that like, think of it this way. If you change one thing or you add one thing a week, after a year, that's 52 things that you've changed. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
year is not a long time, to have a
Uh-huh.
complete transformation.
Totally. It's actually a very short amount of time. I'm 41 years old and um like 1 year now seems so short. I remember like 20 years ago, I was like, a year? Oh my
I
God.
know.
Like there's no way that I can ever do this for an entire year. And I'm like, oh, only a year? That's
Yeah,
all?
exactly.
What are the kinds of transformations that you usually see in your clients when they're finishing up work with you or when they've reached some sort of transformation? Like, what would you like verbally explain what that transformation is for those clients?
Yeah, that whole self-love, self-worth thing, that is usually the biggest transformation I see because now they believe in themselves. They see, okay, I did this and I can keep doing it because one of my aims with my coaching programs is like I'm not looking for clients for life. I'm trying to actually give them the tools that they can tap into on their own, when our container ends, that they can just continue on and they have the tools that they need and they know the resources that, they can tap into so that they can continue on their own. And maybe they'll need a boost every so often. Who doesn't, right? But the goal is to have them believing that they can do it on their own. And, and it takes longer for some people, and that's fine. But to see that hope, to see that optimism, to see that confidence and pride in what they've accomplished, that is such an amazing thing to witness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the most beautiful because a lot of times I think we have similar clients where they come to you and they want to lose weight or they want to balance
Mhm.
hormones or like whatever it is in the midlife. But it's like what you actually want though is that you want that self-love and you want
That's
that
it.
self-respect and that compassion. And there's no number on the scale that will ever give you that. And so like why don't we just focus on us
Yeah.
and how good we can actually feel in our body versus what we think it should be.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They always get so much more than they signed up for. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful, because that's the thing is like you said, people don't often they don't realize that what they want is not what they actually want.
Yeah.
And we can give them what they want, of course. Like that's the easy part, and but it takes so much more to get them what it is that they think they want,
Mhm.
and in getting that thing that goal, they get so much more along with it.
Yeah.
And they don't realize it at first. But you can't sell that. You can't be like, "Hi, I've got a coaching program for self-love and self-worth and connection and joy and meet." And so people be like, "Whatever, I can't do that in 12 weeks." But you
Yeah,
can.
girl. Next one, please.
It's like, I don't want all that. I just want to lose 10 pounds. Like, what the heck?
Yes, I feel that deeply. So what would you say what do you want women to know about the power and the potential of where they are in midlife? Like what is one thing that you could tell them as finishing our conversation that about their power and about their potential and about like them coming into this new version of them and this new phase of life?
One thing, okay. I would say that one thing that I love to do is remind women of their strength. That, we'll talk about, I mean, by the time you reach midlife, I don't care who you are. By the time you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, you have seen a lot. You have been through a lot, and you've made it. You're here. And I love to remind them of, to tap back into that strength. It's like, what got you through that difficult time? What think back to all the things that you've been through. You are an amazing, amazing woman. And sometimes we forget, but to just reflect on that and be like, think about all the things that you've been through. And you might feel a little bit like a mess right now, but that's just temporary. That's temporary. Let's tap into like those strengths and get you back and put you, integrate you back into one full amazing human being, the amazing human being that you are. And to remind them that this can be a very, very powerful time of life because you have that wisdom and that strength and that experience and that motivation and inspiration to change whatever it is that you want to change right now. Put all of that together, that is an explosive combination. And so I want to remind women that you've got that. We've all got that in us. Sometimes we forget, but we do have that. Everybody has that. And so just to like instill that hope and know that things are going to be better. You just need a little bit of guidance right now. That's it. That's it. Just a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of guidance, and we'll figure out what's going to work for you. And once we figure that out, look out. Look
Yeah.
out because you've got a lot of power and strength within you. We just need to pull that back out. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's I think that's my one reminder is that you've got it inside you. You've got it. You just might need a little bit of support to bring it back out.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And also, like, so validating that it's okay that you want or you're seeking support when you feel that you're in a low point. And I also think that that's just a great, like, when you feel that really low point in your life, and then you have this desire come in, that's your fuel to get you
Yes.
to be like, I'm going to now take an action to light this fire inside of me and be able to do something amazing with it. Because what was working or what how I was feeling before was not working, and that was my sign that now I need something else.
That's right. To recognize that sign and act on it is really powerful. And I'll remind women of that too. Like they'll be like, "Oh, you really helped me so much," or "You changed my life." I was like, "I didn't do it. You did that.
Yeah. Yeah,
You did
absolutely.
that. Like I'm just here to support you. You're the one who came to me. Like you're the one who paid me. Like
Yeah.
you did all of that." Like
Yeah.
I didn't do. I mean, I just helped you. I just help guide you and support you, and that's it. No man is an island. No woman is an island. We have to do this with each other. We need each other's support. I think we come from this culture and society that it's so individualized and so, isolating. We forget that we need each other, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame
Mhm.
in that. Like we
Oh,
have as humans, when we work together, it creates this synergistic effect that we're not just better individually, like together we're great,
yeah.
and so to recognize that and to seek out support, there should not be any shame in that. I wish we could just normalize seeking support.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, I loved this conversation so much. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and what they should do to reach out to you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so I will always meet them where they're at. So if you're on Instagram, I'm on Instagram at Anna dot, oh, sorry, it's my first and last name, AnnaDeMarais.rn. That's my Instagram handle. I also have another Instagram handle, Anna Mizzou. That's more for the psychedelic plant medicine stuff. So if you're looking more into that, that might be more of the account to go to. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me with my first and last name on LinkedIn. I have a website, AnnaDeMarais.live. And then I have an email address too if you want to just reach out to me by email. It's annademarais.rn@gmail.com.
Okay, and we will put that in the show notes so everyone's
Yay.
like, what the heck did she just
I
say?
know.
It's all in the show notes, so just go there and click. And then also, if you follow me on Instagram, because a lot of my listeners are going to be on Instagram, you'll just be able to see, we'll tag her so you can easily find her Instagram profile. Yes, I just absolutely love this conversation. I think everyone else will too. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.